everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching from. And welcome to, I think this is our fifth sickle cell trait panelist discussion. I am Martha Miller, and I'm the founder of Symptomatic Sickle Cell Trait Global Voices United, purely because I had a severe crisis in 2020 and it led to me having symptoms of a stroke and complications that I'm still dealing with to date. I just want to welcome you all, and I hope you enjoy the session. The topic is mainly for the ladies, but also for girl dads, for partners of women who have sickle cell trait, have symptoms of the trait, and suffer like they have the full-blown disease, whether mild across the spectrum to severe, like some of us have severe symptoms. And I'll just introduce our lovely panelists. So we have a new co-host, Andrina George, who is a filmmaker. She's worked with a number of companies from the BBC to MTV. A writer, she's also a writer who's currently working on her first fantasy series. Woo! And an events producer, organizing anything from screenings to personal events. And we have our guest, Nike, as well, who has been on panel before. And I will just give you an intro to Nike as well. She is an SET warrior, a wonderful wife, a mom of SET warriors. She's qualified as a psychotherapist in 2018. And despite suffering with symptoms of sickle cell trait crises so severely, Nike graduated last year from university and recently had her fourth baby as well. And she looks amazing and has done so well. So proud of you, sis. And yeah, she lives in Bolton, UK, and we will take it from here. So I'm going to give a brief overview of some of the findings, and welcome to our guests. Welcome to everybody attending. And yeah, without further ado, thank you for joining. And I shall get started. I've done a mini presentation. I'm a little nervous, but I'm gonna strive to keep in good time as well. So yeah, thank you to my co-host for being here, and thank you to Nike for joining. I'm excited. Okay. So okay, so the topic being periods, pregnancy, and complications in sickle cell trait. As I said, my name is Martha Miller, and I suffer with severe symptoms of sickle cell trait crises and other complications, which I won't go into in today's session. Next slide, please, sis.
One second.
No problem. Hi, Larissa. Thank you for joining. Oh, I forgot. I'll tell everybody while I remember. The overview of what today's session will be is a panel discussion. So I'll give a brief presentation, and then I'll hand over to Nike, who will also share her journey. And then after she's shared her story, we'll have an overview of the questions, of any questions that we kind of thought of answering together, and questions that Andrina will ask us, and then we'll have a brief panel discussion, say about, I think it's half an hour, 40 minutes, but Andrina's facilitating the time, so she'll give us the nudge if we're running over. And then anyone who has any questions watching, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll answer them when the question and answer section comes through for attendees. And then afterwards, we'll announcements. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. So, okay, so in brief, what is sickle cell trait for anyone who isn't sure of what it is? It isn't a disease. However, it is a very real condition, as many of us know. So hemoglobin AS is the medical term for sickle cell trait. It's the carrier state of sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease, as many of us know. And I came to find out that there's hundreds of different variants over the past couple of years. So dependent on what variant you carry, you can have severe symptoms of sickle cell disease. So like sickle cell disease, sickle cell trait is genetically inherited by either one parent who has a full-blown sickle cell disease or both parents if they have sickle cell trait. If both parents are carriers, there is a high percentage, as the slide shows, of the child being born with sickle cell trait. And what we've come to find out through our lived experiences and clinically as well, that even though medically it's not classed as sickle cell disease, it's not the same as sickle cell disease. We tend to present very different, even though we're very similar in many aspects. There is a percentage of sickled hemoglobin, so C-shaped hemoglobin that carriers will have. And in my opinion, this is just purely opinion, the higher the percentage, the more risk there is of having a sickle cell crisis or other complications. Most clinical research does say that carriers live normal, healthy lives. And what we found is many of us, we live healthy until we don't, because we just don't know the risks due to the reduced oxygen carrying capacity of those sickle cells. Next slide, please, sis. Okay, so because of the topic being about sickle cell trait in menstruation, over the past few months, I mean, over the years, I have suffered really severely with severe periods. My periods have been so excruciating that within school, I always had severe pains. I was always immobilized during at some point of my period. And I always bled extremely heavily with severe clots. The findings that I found were with regards to having the full-blown disease. So it says these in quotation, sickle cell disease may impact menstruation in other ways, rather than just triggering pain crises. And researchers have found that having the disease may delay puberty for some young women. However, in the trait, that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, I feel like a giant. I'm really tall and I'm quite heavy set now. People who have the full-blown disease start their period, or some of them start their period later than many of their peers. And like it states, with sickle cell disease full-blown, it can cause heavier bleeding and longer periods. So that's something which I found to be true in my experience as a carrier. And the research is from the sicklecell.com living menstruation, an article that I found. Okay, so although sickle cell trait, as I've just mentioned, isn't a disease state, we know that carriers of the genetic condition also have a number of sickle cells. And again, my opinion is that the higher the percentage of sickled hemoglobin, the higher the risk of complications, including crisis pains and blood clots under the right physiological and environmental conditions, stress, such as stress and low oxygen levels, and also deeming pregnancy, which is our next subject, a high risk physiologically. So what I want to leave you with today on this slide is think about this, and whenever you're kind of experiencing a crisis or complications, heavy blood clots, and your healthcare providers questioning and saying, you know, I'll put you on the pill, say, for instance, question whether you should be on that, because there are risks of having blood clots, and blood clots lead to stroke. So ultimately, are you on the best treatment, you know, the best treatment that you should be on if you're having high risk of crises because of your trait status and you're symptomatic. So wouldn't it therefore make sense that we too would suffer some of the above statements that clinical researchers and medics have stated in the research in relation to having sickle cell trait, because we carry some, you know, whatever percentage may be of sickle cell disease. Next slide, please. Okay, so Research, I also looked upon research of sickle cell trait complications in pregnancy. Whilst there doesn't seem to be any conclusive evidence, there is research out there, and I believe that there's enough to get us talking, which we're doing now, you know, hosting these conversations and discussing things in relation to sickle cell trait. In some of the research, under a controlled study, a number of people who have sickle cell trait did suffer a lot of bacterial and urine infections whilst pregnant, including pyelonephritis, which is a dangerous, potentially dangerous infection of the kidneys. I've had that. So in comparison to their non-carrier counterparts, and these statements below were taken from the National Center for Biotechnology website. So sickle cell trait, the titles are emboldened, sickle cell trait and its association with birth weight and urinary tract infections in pregnancy. So the statement was sickle cell trait was associated with a significant increase in bacteriuria, I can't say it properly, and pyelonephritis during pregnancy. I had many, in brief, I've had many symptoms of bacterial infections, urinary infections, which led to ultimately delivering very early in both my pregnancies. And my story in brief is I lost both my children, the second time almost losing my life. My infection markers were sky high, and I just happened to have sickle cell trait and have a crisis following delivering, but I lost 1,300 mils of blood the second pregnancy round, and nobody thought to call me high risk or to flag up the fact that I was high risk medically. However, I did have a genetics counselor who came home before I gave birth to talk about the fact that my children might have sickle cell trait, dependent on the father's status. So that was all I got, despite knowing what I suffered with. I just never thought of the dangers or the potential high risks of having sickle cell trait and what my body itself was going to go through. Okay, so the following statement again was taken from another medical review. Again, the title is in bold. So the title was Complications Associated with Sickle Cell Trait, and it's a brief narrative review. So it states, sickle cell trait is probably associated with complications such as hyphema and venous thromboembolic events, aka in simple terms, blood clots. So that's a bit of a shocker if many people don't know that we are at risk for having blood clots, and this is a medical statement. It's out there. You can search the links that are provided if you rewatch this video, and please feel free to check out the links yourself. These are just statements I thought were relevant to our discussion today. Next slide, please, sis. Just gonna have a sip of water, please excuse me. Okay, so blood clots during pregnancy. In general, this is a general statement that I found. So in general, pregnant women are at risk of having blood clots. And this was something that I looked upon the American Society for Hematology, which clearly states that women who've delivered or pregnant women are at high risk of having blood clots. So they stated about having deep vein thrombosis, which is classified as a DVT, which starts off in the deep veins of the legs or the pelvic area. If a blood clot or DVT breaks off and travels to the blood vessels of the lungs, it causes something known as a pulmonary embolism, so blood clot within the lungs, and that's the life-threatening event. That can happen with sickle cell trait because of the high risk of having blood clots. These are collectively referred to as venous thromboembolisms, and there is prevention. They can give you blood thinners if they know that you have sickle cell trait and you're pregnant. You can push for that. I have had blood thinners. My most recent, when I had a stroke and I was hospitalized in 2020, I was losing blood for over a year. From 2020 till 2021, I was losing blood clot with humongous, literally blood was pouring from me basically, and I was losing clots that looked like organs, and it really freaked me out. So that's something that happened without being pregnant, but it also occurred in my pregnancy as well, where I was hospitalized. And again, please, by my story, use it to advocate for yourselves. Research, there's research in there that tells you things that we're not readily told by the people who were sworn to save our lives. So we have to take action and start, fighting for ourselves and for our children, because it's affecting them as well. And potentially life-threatening. So again, who is at risk of having blood clots? As the statement says, blood clots can be dangerous to the life of your unborn baby too, as it can form within the placenta, therefore causing a loss of blood supply, which ultimately can cause death to your unborn child. I had something known as placental abruptio, where the placenta came away from my uterus, and yeah, it was not very pleasant, very painful. And who's at risk? The risk factors, again, I've highlighted, you can see those risk factors for yourselves, but I've highlighted and underlined that we have genetic predispositions to blood clots because we have sickle cell trait. So as you can see, we are a high risk group. Next slide, please. Okay, so my final thought was I found this that stated, it's quite a large statement, so I'll briefly kind of run through it. But several studies that are out there have revealed, although modest, regardless of what it says is modest, we're finding more and more of us who are similar, where we have symptoms of the disease and we're just carriers who are symptomatic. So but it states that there's a significantly increased incidence of venous thromboembolisms, so DVTs or deep vein thrombosis or blood clots, mainly within the lungs in the population of sickle cell trait carriers. So basically they found that there's a higher risk, and they found increased instances where people who are carriers have had blood clots. So it states again further that sickle cell trait isn't a disease. There's now evidence that they're finding, which is mounting up to say it's the risk factor for some health outcomes. One of them including what we're talking about today, blood clots. You can, again, please have a look at this information for yourself. So it says not only is sickle cell disease a form of inherited thrombophilia, but also sickle cell trait may be a mild risk factor for venous thromboembolism. Are you shocked yet? It's information that we're not aware of, so it's shocking. The implications of this incidence of this happening in sickle cell disease are increasingly appreciated. However, in sickle cell trait, more information is definitely needed, more research is needed. And given the high prevalence that they found within the trait, the population impact, I believe, will be stunning, never mind could be stunning, as they've stated. Even if they've classed the risk as small, I think this is certainly an area for future investigation, just as they've stated as well. So thankfully, they've stated that, this area needs investigation. We're desperate for help. The only way we'll get help is by having these conversations, getting medics, getting our care teams, whoever is seeing us, whether they're in hematology or not, whoever's seeing us needs to be aware of these risks, so that then we can push it. It's on our records. It should be on our records. They should be writing, this is what so-and-so told me when they attended clinic. And if it's not on your records, because having things in writing, having things on your records, having recordings like this, it all helps. It all helps push for help, for change, for our cases. We want research. We need the research. It's killing people. It's dangerous. We deserve that help too. Next slide, please, sis. These are the list of my references. My 32 years of lived experience are sufficient for me. my group's collective experiences because of the Facebook support group that we're in. There's currently over 800 members and it's growing. And the majority of people within that group have predominantly have sickle cell trait diagnosis or are parents of or loved ones of someone with sickle cell trait. So yeah, we need to keep spreading this awareness. Next slide, please. If you're able to, like I said, my book is in paperback on all Amazon platforms. I'm working on the ebook. It's taken a long time purely because of my chronic headaches, which are almost a daily, if not daily thing. So please bear with me. I'll shout out in the group when it's available. But you can get in touch with me via my email address, which is sicklecelltraitinfo@mwapamila.com. If you have a story that you'd like to share, please shout out. And just check out my website. It's got information, it's got these videos on, and grab a copy of my book, which is, if you can see it.
Closer.
Is that right? Can you see it now?
Not at all.
Okay. Maybe else. It worked before. Okay, never mind. Oh.
You put it over your face. Might work.
Does that work?
There you go. A little bit.
So that's what the cover looks like on Amazon. And it should come up. It's called Symptomatic: Life of a Sickle Cell Carrier, an Invisible Disability, My Story. And it lists what my genetics counselor told me. It lists some of what the Sickle Cell Society told me about instances where we can suffer, and how I helped myself. But it kind of also listed each instance of when I suffered crises and what those triggers were. So it might make you aware of something that you're unaware of already. And thank you for listening. Thank you, sis. Okay, so as I've already introduced Nikki, I will just hand over the floor to you, and please share your experience with us, sis.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, good. It's so nice to meet you. I've not met some of the ladies here before, so it's good to meet everyone. So I'm Nikki. Thank you so much, Lulu. Thank you for this opportunity. It's always like a light bulb moment for me when I get to do this, because there's something new that you learn every day just through the experiences that we share together, you know. So I don't take it for granted at all. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so with periods, yeah, so I want to say specifically that when I started noticing these symptoms, I didn't actually relate them to my STC at all. You know, I didn't feel like there were connections. I've always known that I had, you know, sickle cell trait as a child. It's something that is quite common as well from you know, where I come from in Nigeria. So we usually, like in a family, you would probably see, like, if you know, a few of us that have this. So I started noticing when I was about 8 to 10, yes, that I was quite low on vitamin D. So that was the first pointer that landed me in the hospital. So following that, there were a series of situations that I would sometimes even pass out, you know, and sometimes there were times I collapsed, you know, just standing at the bus stop, like they would actually rush me down to the hospital. So I started noticing or doing those connections when I saw a doctor and the doctor just said something and said, has anyone told you that sickle cell trait carriers can be symptomatic as well? And that was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, okay, no, I've never heard that before. So I started writing down my symptoms, and then I was following up on things that were happening to me. So with period, I would say I can literally count how many times I've had like pain-free, kind of period. Yes, it's been a battle since I was a teenager. Since I can remember, I've always had period. It's either I'm rolling on the floor, having this huge, excessive bleeding, or there were times even that I'll practically not be able to move at all. Like I won't be able to use my back at all. Yeah, it was that bad. So and I did get those options of going on the pills, and because some of us, we really don't have this, where we come from. When you tell people that, oh, this is what I'm going through, the first reaction is, oh, this is not your portion, in Jesus' name. If people come to you from that spiritual point of view, that angle, that no, this is not your portion, no, your body is playing serious tricks on you, or your mind is playing these tricks on you. So I would usually not talk about it, you see. So I technically went through most of these things myself, not telling anyone about it. So when I got married, it was really bad, because I think it was getting worse with age. The older I was getting, the more I could feel this pain. They were like getting closer to my bones. Yes. So when I got married, and I didn't even get pregnant almost immediately. We were trying for 3 years, and it wasn't like there was anything wrong with this series of tests. And they were like, well, you should actually get pregnant. There's nothing, your eggs are so healthy, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't happening until about year 3 that I fell pregnant. I felt pregnant, and I went straight to the doctor that, well, this is what is happening with me. So immediately they wanted to do a blood test to see what was going on with me, because I was becoming so tired on my own. So the blood test revealed that I was so low on iron. So, well, that has always been my story. I'm like, I've always been anemic, as for forever. So maybe the pregnancy is taking a lot from me. But I'll tell you that since that 8 years ago when I had my first till now, I'm still always anemic. Always, no matter how much. In fact, I'm always on these tablets, for iron tablets. Every time I'm pregnant, it's like my blood literally just decides to go on holiday. So they're always watching me closely. I'm always on iron tablet. So I'll take iron tablet, they'll do the blood test again to see if it's come up, and it's still always reading low. So even after I gave birth to my baby, I'll still go back for the test. I'll still be reading low. In fact, I still had a meeting with my hematologist last week, and I'm still reading low, even though I'm on iron tablets. So my iron just never, it's just always there. So I'm always feeling quite breathless. So that is something that is a huge struggle for me every day, every time. I struggle a lot with breathlessness. And there has been times I've passed out, or even the last time I passed out, my 8-year-old was there. He was reading, and I was in the kitchen. My husband was standing there, and I just felt this, it's just big wave of dizziness. And I just held my head like that. And, the next thing I was going, and my boy, it was actually his loud noise that I heard in my subconscious that jolted me back. He just said, "Mommy," So it was getting to that point that it's becoming super scary, So I'm getting back in touch with the hematologist now, that what can we do? Like, what actually should I be doing? Like, is there something I'm doing wrong? What should I be doing? Because apparently everything I hear is different. Yeah, the hematologist did say to me that I'm presenting differently to the people with, the full-blown disease that he's treating. So it's really tricky for him to say that this is exactly what we should be doing. But they've given me a lot of advices on how to even start using the iron tablet, not to use them like frequently anymore. It should be every other day or every other 2 days, so that I should give my body time to, soak them in. So I'm just, sometimes I'm really super sad about the fact that there hasn't been any kind of support or education, the knowledge that we need to look after ourselves. So it's always been, when I type something on Google, it brings out loads of other things aside. It's just that there's really nothing telling us that this is what we should be doing. So that's why I really appreciate this kind of forum where we can educate ourselves, and somehow maybe just something, something miraculous will happen. Someone will hear us or listen and, give us a bit of attention, into maybe researching into how we present, and the dangers of it as well. So, so I'm always anemic. There's this back pain that I can't explain. It's terrible, that I also experience in pregnancy as well, and the same in my period too also. Then I get a lot of bone ache and bone flares a lot. So and even my fingers as well, sometimes I get, it just becomes it's quite it twingles. I don't know how to explain it. Then the blood loss and the clots we were talking about really is really scary. That's the only way I can describe that. So sometimes I used to do like a diary of it. Like I'll take a picture because I really want to know how to measure it. So from the things I've read online, they will say like a tablespoon worth of blood loss, that is when you can get seen or you can be referred, So I started doing the measurements, see how. Then I said to myself, what am I doing? Like, this situation is actually messing me about, and then I stopped doing the measurements. I just started doing, but I do a diary anyway. I do a diary of when I get that blood loss and then the blood clotting as well. So I do get that thinning, that injection that they give you, that blood thinning, I get that a lot as well, especially when I'm pregnant. So that is something that they start me on quite early on. And then I'm quite prone to diabetes as well, when I'm pregnant. So that's something to keep an eye on. You might actually just start as earlier on to start to monitor your sugar level, because it can actually be as dangerous when you start noticing later on. I noticed mine later on, and then it wasn't pleasant because I then needed to stay off. Everything I was eating was spiking my sugar. Every damn thing was spiking my sugar. So we didn't start monitoring on time because it was never something that bothered me until my last baby. Then the passing out saga, oh God. So we had to go into the hospital earlier this time around when I fell pregnant with my baby, because we insisted that we wanted a cesarean done. And they kept telling me that I don't have any obstetric reason to get that done. The reason I was pushing for a cesarean was because of the blood loss situation I had with my third. So I lost like 1.5 liters, that much. And when I went back when I registered for my fourth baby, there was no record of that situation. There was no record of it, So I kept saying to them that there was a situation when I had my third that actually I remember that they pressed the code red. A lot of doctors came in and they kept saying that they were taking me into the theater because the blood was not it was not stopping. So they kept pushing and pushing. It was not something I was too aware of, but my husband told me after that it was so dangerous, so close to losing me. So after all of that, I felt, well, that was all. I'm not doing this anymore. But somehow, as God will have it, I fell pregnant with my last baby. So immediately, because I know what I've been through with my, with the previous pregnancies, I said, see, I just want to go for the cesarean. I don't want to try again to have the baby by myself. I don't think I can do it. In fact, I don't have the energy anymore. So they kept pushing me for a reason. I'm like, well, there should be a record that tells you about what happened last time, and it wasn't there. So they had to search and search for records. So I asked them that, how much blood did I lose the last time? And the doctor said about 1.5 liter. I'm like, is that enough to classify as excess loss of blood? And she said, actually, yes. I'm like, so so you don't even know, you don't even have it on records. I have to tell you before you then search deeper to see what the figures were. So why do you then want me to go through this again? So that tells you that you need to be on your 2 feet to push for your own care. Like, nobody really cares, to be honest. You have to, and you need your tribe also, because my guess would be that if my husband were not to be there with me, they probably have, talked me into having the baby naturally. But my husband was there, and he kept saying that, you know what, can you just stop scaring her? We want a cesarean, that's what we want to go for. Then I also noticed that I do get this eye twitching symptoms. I don't know if any other person have noticed that. Yeah, I just get this, there's just something with my eyes when I'm pregnant, it twitches in a very strange way. And then it's like, it gives me the chills anytime it happens to me. I don't like it, but it happens to me a lot. I don't know if it is STC related, then I'm quite prone to infection. A lot, different kind of infections, from the start to the end of my pregnancies. I have loads and loads of infection. That's something to be aware of as well. Then as soon as you know that, in fact, it's something that they've been telling us now. Research has actually found that we should all be taking excess, extra vitamin D. If you can't overtake it. So I was low on vitamin D as well. So that was something that we were not aware of. Normally, I'm always on vitamin D, but for some reason, it was making me super nauseous. So I stopped taking it. So, and that was not a good idea. So be on top of your vitamin D. And I think another thing that I struggled with a lot is this headache. I can't explain the pain that comes with that headache. So it's not like the normal headache that you feel when you say paracetamol. No, this is not paracetamol kind of headache. It's like it's just there, and it's like banging on my head like that. So I was I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I don't know, I've heard that from a few estes, sickle cell trait carriers, that they have fibro. My guess is that after all of this testing here and there, they just give you something to work with, just have this one, you can work with this. So I was given that, and well, I can't say that there are so many differences with the symptoms. There are so many similar symptoms to the SCC that we go through as well. So, but my goal was to get someone on my side, really. My goal was to get someone to believe me and help me to just access the right support. Really, I wasn't asking for too much. So when I see a doctor now and I present my case to them, the first thing that you get told is, well, from what we know, research does not support that, sickle cell trait is symptomatic in a way. So I always say to them, can you please listen to me? I just crave their indulgence, first of all, before going straight into telling them about my symptoms. So you need to get them on your side. So don't go with, don't go like you want to go for a battle. No, you're pushing them away the more. So I was super lucky to find a doctor that listened to me. God bless her soul, because she only just passed away last week. That doctor, I was so blessed that I found that kind of doctor. So when I told her everything, she said to me that she was going to do some referrals for me, and she did. And for the first time, I got seen by a hematologist. I got seen by they sent me for this neurological test as well. Then I got sent me for a physiotherapist as well for my back. Then it was found that I also have this spinal issue, scoliosis, so, and that probably has to do with the bone as well. So when you're talking about STC anyway, it has to do with your bones, the structures of our bones, how we are looking after ourselves in that way, which is really, really important, So that is something I'm having to deal with right now. So, and then I noticed that I get a lot of moles when I'm pregnant. I don't know if that is something that is common to everyone. So I don't know if you can see that, I get those moles a lot when I'm pregnant, on my legs, on my body. Some of them will go away, but there are some that I have on my leg that did not go, so that are now being investigated. So if you have any moles on your body, make sure you're getting them checked, because it could actually be dangerous as well when you have moles, like unexplainable moles somewhere. They come in this dark shade. Some of them are molded, just tiny dark bits like that. If it's becoming itchy or scaly or something, make sure you get it checked out. Then you are doing yourself a lot of good than harm. It's better to get it checked than to leave it later, because some of them can be cancerous as well. So you have to be on top of that. Yeah. So but if I'm asked what I struggle with the most, I think is the breathlessness and the bone aches. I guess super nauseous a lot as well. Sometimes nothing really has to happen. I can just sit down like that and then start feeling nauseous, dizzy, I'll be like, what's going on in my head? Why am it started messing me about in my head at some point, that I felt, even being a psychotherapist, I needed to go into therapy myself, because I was having this health anxiety that was affecting me a lot. So I went to therapy just to process that, So I can say categorically that the older I get, the more I'm feeling this pain. Yes, the older I get, the more I feel them. It started becoming something that I can't neglect anymore when I turned 38. Yeah, between 35 and 38 was really hard then. And since then, I've just been managing it. So I'm on a couple of medications, for the pain. But with medication, especially when you're taking opioids, it just postpones the pain for you. It's not like, and they all have withdrawal symptoms as well. So, it's the case of your life or your money. Which one do you want to go for? So you need to figure out how to manage your medications as well. You don't want to be on them, like being super dependent on them, right? So I've tried to like figure out how my body takes them. It can be hard because it gives me IBS as well. So you get constipated today, diarrhea tomorrow. Your body system is just everywhere, So I said to my doctor the other time that if I'm being placed on all of these medications, right, for fibro, for for the bone pains, for everything, what exactly is the kind of care that you would give to someone with a full-blown sickle cell disease? And that was when he said to me that you probably need to keep seeing your hematologist for all of this advice, because generally I want to believe that our general practitioners are not really I don't want to use the wrong word, but they are not really in tune with what is happening with sickle cell trait carriers at all. So when you go to your GP, don't expect too much from them, really. What you should be pushing for is referrals to hematologists, and then to see if they can get you tested. So I was given this, I didn't bring it here. So I was given this card eventually. So the card, I think they just have this information on it that this person is a sickle cell trait carrier. So I don't know if you've done that, Lulu. I don't know if you have it through your hematologist. Were you given that card? No. Oh, okay. So I was referred to the Manchester hematology is a bigger one in Manchester. So that was where I was referred to. So after all the blood tests, so they'll do like, it's just like the normal bank cards, right? But with an information on it to say that this person is a sickle cell trait carrier. So there is really no need for you to keep doing any blood tests for her anymore. So any kind of care that you want to give to her or to help her symptoms, just do it instead of always going through blood tests and blood tests and blood tests. Because I'm done with blood tests now. I've done too many blood tests. Like they're always taking my blood and taking my blood. I'm like, I think I've had enough. I'm not doing blood tests anymore. So they've issued that card to me. So I think since I had that card, they've not been testing me as often anymore. So when I call in now to say this is what is going on, they are trying to look for like an immediate kind of intervention rather than sending me for blood tests again. So those interventions that I'm using currently is medications, physio. So I'm doing physio. Someone has told me about chiropractor or what something. Yeah, I'm looking to explore that as well. I think it's got to do with massage, but in a very more intense way. So it has to do with your pain, all your pain points. They will discover all these parts that are super painful, and then those are the parts that they work on rather than working on a full body massage for you. So I'm exploring that. And then I do get a lot of relief from warm bath. I've been soaking myself in a bath. I think that is more psychological, than physical. Yes, I think in my head, I just believe that when I get into that warm bath, I get some relief, and it works for me in a good way. Sometimes I'm still on crutches. So yeah, that's my crush. So for my back, I still experience a lot of back pain. I get super inflamed on this side more than this side of my back. So when I was pregnant, that's something to note as well. So my first pregnancy was okay. I felt the pain, but it was manageable. But since my second, I usually go straight on the crutches, when I'm pregnant, because I'm not able to practically use my back and my legs. So I use crutches through my pregnancy. there's a belt. I left it here, but the kids have taken it. I wanted to show you guys as well. So it's like a back belt. So in pregnancy, the moment you know that, oh, you're pregnant, so just try as much as you can to start thinking of how to support your back. This the back, like that. So the lower back, I'll call it. Yes. So the lower back. So the belt helps to carry the weight, of the baby. So it's not sitting directly on your spine. It's not magical. I'm not saying it's anything magical, but it helps. So now the belt is helping me to, just to manage the back pain now. So I use the back belt as well. Yeah, so those are the interventions that work for me. So
when you mute yourself. Thank you so much, Nick. I'm fairly conscious of time, and we want to make sure that anybody that wants to ask a question can ask a question. So I'll be monitoring the chat, and I'll also be monitoring the Facebook groups. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, please put it towards the group. In the first instance, I'm just going to go for it and just ask my questions. That's an amazing story, Nick, and thank you so much for also sharing the interventions, which was, amazing and very useful, I'm sure, to the audience. Okay, so I'm just going to ask the question of both of you, because I know and anybody else in the group who wants to answer the question or who wants to say a comment, please just raise your hand, and then I'll say, speak, and then we can hear your thoughts. So for both of you, and I know you've mentioned quite a lot of this, Nika, but we'll, if there's any other things that you have apart from the breathlessness, that would be great for you to share with us. So what did you struggle most with during your menstrual cycles and pregnancy because of sickle cell trait?
Yeah, so for me, I'll say it was the blood clots and the pain. So yeah, and the pain is not like the kind of pain that you just take just paracetamol. Like, it's a constant pain that is just there, and then the blood loss makes you lose huge amount of clot as well, that you practically look at them and you're like, is this stuff coming out from my body? And they can be scary. So, but if you get mentally ready, you're mentally aware of these things, they might actually not be as scary. So I will always advise as well to have a diary, a symptoms diary, where you can write these things. So when you're going to your doctor, you're not just going with words of mouth, you're going with information, you're getting there ready. You see, yeah. So that's the most painful part for me. And then the collapsing episode as well.
Can I ask, in terms of the pain, is it like a high intensity and also constant as well? Is that kind of how it is?
That's the best way to describe it. It's high intensity, very constant. It's not like you're gonna feel it now and then you get some relief in an hour. No, it's constant. For me, for the first 2-3 days of my period, it's always like that.
And what can you do when you're in that pain? Is there, because obviously you've got children, so you've got a hell of a lot on your hands. You can't just afford to do nothing. So how does that work when you're in constant pain, but you've still got to feed the kids? How are you managing? How are you coping, basically? What are you doing?
Yeah, I do get that. So you technically can't avoid or escape from your family, but I'm super useless when I'm in that mode. I literally can't do anything. So I take my medications, with eating pad, and then I've got a back massage machine as well. So one of the things that works for me is lying down on the floor. I have to lie down on bare floor. Yeah, so I'm not able to do as much. So my husband just takes over. It's really tricky. It's really hard. I'm not going to say it's easy for us, but we've gotten so in tune with our timetable and stuff like that. So my husband has an app to follow up with my period as well, so that he knows, he's aware that, I'm going to need him at this point in time. I'm not going to say it's easy at all. It's super hard. Sometimes I'm so useless. I just order some food in for the kids because I'm not able to go to the kitchen to serve them. So yeah.
What about yourself, Marpe?
I hear that. I'm like, oh, I don't know if you guys could see when Nikki was talking about the blood loss and everything and the clots, like I just grabbed my stomach because it makes me feel physically sick. And how you mentioned as well about your notes being lost, how I don't understand, because I had to write it in the chat that that's what happened to me when I went there for my second pregnancy. They asked me for my first set of records, which they don't let you leave in general hospital with your own records. You have to pay for them, or you have to request them through a SARS record. So I was shocked that they lost them. So I'm feeling everything that you've been saying. I mean, for me now, the thing that I've struggled the most during menstrual cycles is I think mentally the fear of this period, because my periods, like Nikki, you're saying, they immobilize me mostly every day because of the headaches as well that I'm having. I used to have them since childhood, and in my menstruation cycles, they were always horrendous. And so literally just having bad chronic headaches to the point of nausea, and last month I was vomiting with them constantly. And just feeling like this pain in my back, it's in specific points of my spine as well, and it's constant. It just won't go to I have a crutch at the side of my bed, and some days I can manage without. If my mom massages me, she has to massage parts of my spine and my legs and parts of my buttocks area just to kind of get me moving. I got myself a puppy, so she's a year now, and she's been motivating me to get up and do things. But when I'm bad, I'm really bad. And like Nika, some days my mom has to be the one that just takes over with her. But she's been a bit of a motivation because of losing my children. That was the part that I struggled the most pregnancy-wise, losing my children, the bleeding. Literally just, it was like water. Somebody opened the tap and this blood is just gushing out. And then the past couple of years took me right back to having my second child and my first, but the second one, because of the loss of blood in that way, where it was just pouring. And this was every day, minus a few days over the course of a year for the past, since 2020 till 2021 in September. The bleeding it just took me right back to being pregnant again. And the only option now, I think, which I've come to terms with, is the fact that I may never have children ever again, because, and I held them, thank God, I got to hold them in my arms, and my second one died in my arms. But to have to kind of come to terms with that is sad. I'm only 37, and it's very sad. The cost of it's cost lives. It's cost my baby's lives, because of this lack of awareness. I think that's the part that I'm struggling the most with, because I've just been given the option to have endometrial ablation, which means they're going to remove the lining of my womb, which means no more periods, which is heaven sent. I asked them about this many years ago after my second born died, but because no one could find anything, no endometriosis, the fibroids that I had when I was younger had disappeared, which they said it could have happened. My first pregnancy, I had small fibroids, and they said it could have caused the bleeding, and then it disappeared. And again, breathlessness as well, I had as well. So yeah, there's a few things that are major struggle factors that I'm just trying to just be okay with now. And I guess I have plenty babies in the fact that African families, you're always babying everyone anyway, including your parents. So it's I'm still a mom at heart, and my niece is my baby now. So that's my answer for this one.
Thank you. So when you guys were growing up, was it the menstruation that triggered the crises, and have your periods gotten worse, since you've gotten older?
So for me, I struggle with weather changes a lot, you know. Yeah, so my pain gets really bad, you know, my bones get flared up, you know, when it's really cold. And then when it's super warm as well, you know, is like I'm getting, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is like getting this feeling like electric shock somehow, you know, somehow. So I have to be hydrated, like I'm talking about on and on and on being hydrated. There's no stop. My little boy is actually is also a warrior himself, and I saw it live how this thing can start presenting in little ones as well. This last about 3 weeks ago now that we had there's this heat wave that we experienced, and my boy he almost had a fit. Like they were just playing. Yeah, it's just 4. They were playing outside, and he kept coming back for water. So because of the awareness I've got them bottles filled with water. So he kept drinking and drinking, and he finished his own big bottle of water. And my other kids were still there. They've not even drank up to half. And my 4-year-old had finished his big bottle of water, and he kept coming back again. And that was when I said to my husband that I think we should stop him from playing or running around now. It wasn't even 5 minutes up until when I said that, and this boy was going down. You know, I just noticed it, and it just fell in my hands like that. You see, so that was my experience as a child as well. So, and the same thing when the weather is super cold, I get bone aches, you know. And then it's almost the same thing with my period, you know, because whenever my period is coming, my body tells me, I know that it's coming. So because the pain that you're experiencing, you know, the pointers are too strong to, you know, for you to even say that you're not noticing them. So it's quite noticeable, the amount of pain that I experience, my pelvic, my back, the headache as well, you know, the dehydration, nausea, and vomiting, like you said, you do. So that happens to me as well. So those are my own symptoms. Yeah.
Sorry, do you get fevers as well?
I get fevers as well, yes. So,
yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Mawape?
Yeah, exactly what Nick is saying. For me, the way I describe like the pain in my body is like somebody's stabbing nonstop with a knife, and it's like my bones are being crushed. And I never used to feel that heat played a big part, but over the past, I'd say this past year, heat has been a trigger for crises, milder than I had with the major one, much milder, but still to the point where I'm debilitated. And I think I'd spoken to you, Andrina, and told you that I was vomiting last month with these crises in the heat. The heat seemed to just trigger a crisis for me, and it's almost like if anyone's had flu, because like a lot of people say, oh, I've had the flu, but then when they talk about it, it's just a common cold. But then when you've had the flu, you know the difference between the flu and swine flu. I'm thinking swine flu because I had that as well, where I was slurring my words when I had that, and it triggered crises often when I was working in Manchester. And just thinking about periods and then having these flu-like symptoms, but it's stabbing bone pain in my pelvis to the point where I can't sit down. This week I've had mild stabbing in my pelvis and in my arms and my thighs, and I'm just really conscious, which is, I mean, you guys can see I've been drinking my 2.2 liter bottle of water, but sometimes I'll drink 2-3 of those a day. And the other day I actually finished a full one by 10 a.m. from waking about 7 in the morning, and I'd finished that by 10 a.m. That excessive thirst that Nika was mentioning, as a child, I was extremely thirsty, just nonstop thirsty. And my drinks, I couldn't take them even, they were just barely tinted. Colored water was literally what I would drink because everything would make me super thirsty. And my mom she was okay with being told by the doctors, it's growing pains whenever she takes me as a child to the doctor, to the point where she got sick and tired of hearing the same thing, that she stopped taking me. So whenever I was just bedbound, screaming, those images have never left, because that's how it is when I'm in crisis. And I'm just bedbound with fevers, screaming, stabbing, bomb pains, but they happen everywhere. I wanted to mention the twitching that you mentioned in your eyes.
Yeah.
I've been having that, and I didn't think anything of it until I've just made that connection now, because Faustina in the group as well has been talking about twitching in her eyes. She's been having the discoloration and the molds that you're talking of as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether it's just in her periods, but she also has sickle cell trait, and she's been in crisis so often. And it's just like, wow, all these similarities, and we're globally, we've never met before this group, and it's like, wow, we're experiencing a very similar thing, and just being dismissed and just making those connections. It's almost like meeting a family member that, this is how it feels. It literally feels like a family member. Someone gets me, someone understands, when we met, and when I've met so many people that I've just connected with in the group, and it's like super emotional, but it's like, I feel your pain. I understand it. I'm not being dismissed. I'm not being discharged. And just knowing that, wow, a period can trigger such pain, but yet we can come together and talk about it, and just know that I get you. Like you said, Nika, a hot bath or heat pad. I put herbal rub that like heats up the area, and I'll put a heat pad on the areas that hurt my back. I have one behind me right now, but I'm quite warm today, so I don't want to overheat, because I didn't realize overheating is dangerous. It can trigger a crisis as well. So it's just being mindful of all the triggers, periods, not having periods. My periods have gone so messed up that it's just, I don't know when I'm gonna start until my body starts getting fevers. So it's,
Can I ask you guys, at what age do you remember, like, first being aware that you had the trait, basically? When did the symptoms first present themselves for you? What age was that?
Mine was around 8 to 10, yeah.
Did you have one before, but then you didn't realize it was that, or was it really 8 to 10?
Yeah, it was eight, between 8 that I first, my awareness that I am aware of, I've always known that I was a very sickly child. I've been told that I was in and out of hospital, but because I can't remember, so. But I remember that when I was, but I at least the ones that I can remember was when I was around 8, between 8, 10-year old, that they kept taking me to the hospital and bringing me back, even though in my head I'll keep looking at what's going on. Why are they taking me here and there, So, and then my legs, I had this issue with my legs as well when growing up, because, and they said, well, that was due to the low vitamin D in my body, so I was having this curved leg, so, which I wasn't born like that. So as I was growing, my leg was in, I don't know how to describe it. So I was going into, so they took me to the hospital to get that checked out, and then they noticed that there was no vitamin D, literally. So I was put on vitamin D, and it wasn't that like my legs then magically or miraculously straighten out, so I do have that element of Blount's disease, to my legs, which I passed to my daughter somehow. Yeah.
Marapi, what about yourself? At what age did you was your awareness basically?
Like Nika, I was always very sickly. From the age of 5 is my clearest memories. When we came back to the UK, because we used to live I was born here, but my mom is from Zambia. So living back home, I never suffered, or I can't remember suffering. The heat didn't trigger anything at such a young age. But then again, it could be because of the presence of fetal hemoglobin being a protective factor as a child. So 5 years old was when we came here, and it was winter and it was cold. We used to have snow in the UK quite often. And I remember just, yeah, 5 years onwards. 8 years was when I became a lot more aware. I had neighbors who have the full-blown disease, and when I would sort of engage with them and speak to them, and they would ask, I haven't seen you outside, and they have children as well of their own, but they hadn't seen me outside. So they were like, are you okay? How's your mom? Just general chit chat. And I would say I've been really sick, and my immediate neighbor had full-blown sickle cell. So she told me what she said, you have sickle cell. And that was clearly something that stuck in my mind. Over the years, it's just been, no, I have sickle cell trait, but she said, no, you have sickle cell. And when they tested me again, it was just the trait. And again, recent genetic test, just the trait. So that's the age I remember. It's something I've always grown up aware of. And again, like Nika mentioned in part of her story, just being alone, because people would literally make you feel stupid for saying that you suffered if you have sickle cell trait, whether people that had full-blown sickle cell or people out on the outside looking in who didn't understand it, or medics would kind of make you feel stupid. When in my teens, there was one doctor I remember, I want to mention his name if he's listening, Dr. Adshead. He was an older doctor back in the day, and I was very anemic. And I just remember him saying, I'm highly anemic. I was a teenager, and he didn't give me the pill, but then I was put on the pill, which has caused so many problems. I think that's also contributed to clotting. But he told me that years ago they used to prescribe in the UK holidays for people who were natural vitamin D deficient from the sun. He said, people of Black and African origin, Afro-Caribbean origin, need more higher dose of vitamin D anyway. So he was like, okay, if only. I said, can you not prescribe me a holiday? And he said, unfortunately, I couldn't. But he said, if it was years ago, we used to do that. And it was just having that, rapport with the doctor, like you said, is so important, because it just makes you feel heard. It makes you feel understood and listened to, even if they don't quite grasp everything you're dealing with. It just helps with the trauma. But yeah, that was the age. Sorry for diverting.
It's okay. In fact, it leads on to my next question. But I just want to say again, if anybody wants to ask any questions, we've got probably about another 10 minutes of questions. Please feel free to either put your hands up, put it in the chat, or put it on the Facebook group on the live link, and then I'll be able to put that to the panel. Okay, so my next question actually just does relate to the medical support or lack of support. Are there any experiences that you feel you didn't need to experience and actually occurred because of their lack of understanding of sickle cell traits? We're going to go to Moape this time. We're going to go to you first.
Yeah.
Change it up a bit.
So many. I wish they, first of all, like Nika was saying, I wish they listened and didn't just Google everything, because now that's what I'm finding is they seem to just Google a lot, and you can see it when you're sat there in their room. I wish doctors would just be honest. I think if they're honest and say, I don't understand much about sickle cell trait, but I'm willing to help. I'm willing to listen. What is going on with your body? What are you feeling? And if they kind of showed that empathy at first, especially when you're in crisis, what I've found is I feel like I did probably contribute to my hematologist dismissing me and discharging me, but it made him very careful in what he wrote to my GP. So me saying, I know my body, I know what I've been through. These are things that I know this is a sickle cell symptom, however, he's stated, I don't believe it's not, I don't believe it's in relation to his sickle cell trait status. He's over the whole of Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. So that's a major area he's covering. He's discharged me. I feel like I don't have a hope to be referred to anyone else, because first I have to contact someone else down south or wherever, and then ask if they'll take me on, if my GP can refer me. It's too much headache, especially when you're not well yourself. And I wish they understood the trauma that they caused by not listening, by not hearing, by not even saying, what can I do to help? Asking me as a patient, what do you feel would help you the best way? I can't promise that I can do this, but I will do what I can to help, within my remit. I think that in itself would just kind of change things. It would be a game changer, because my guard would be down. I wouldn't go feeling like I have to fight, because we fight enough to survive. We fight enough to make it. When we're in crisis, we fight to just get up and be alive. And that's what I felt in 2020. I felt like I'm fighting physically for my life. And at one point I was ready to die. I just wanted to die, because the pain was to be in that constant pain, and for it to happen I'd never had a crisis that lasted 3 months and caused my whole body from head to toe to be triggered. Every single bodily system was affected. So to have that kind of pain, and to just be told I can't do anything, or by my GP, I was told after coming out of hospital, they won't do anything to help you. When I asked for help to go to the toilet, because my back is so bad some days, I've had to request from social care a toilet seat riser and something that looks like a walker for like handles at the sides of my toilet, because I slide down the wall to actually manage to sit when my back is playing up really bad, and when I'm in crisis on my back. And these are things you don't want to have to admit to the world, but it's stuff that, because of being misunderstood, you have to be extremely vulnerable if you want the help that we're desperately seeking for now. And that's something I wish medics could understand, the reason why we're having to be so open, so vulnerable, because it is a vulnerable place to be in.
Nike?
Yeah, so in my case, I would say that I would really have wished that everyone around us, understands us, like they are on your side. I'm not going to entirely say that everyone, even in my family, understand what I'm going through, So I can pick a few people. I know they just sort of like give you this tag, they just give you a tag and everyone says that I'm very, they used to call me lazy when I was a teenager. They used to feel like I just don't want to do stuff, but it's not the truth. I can be very high functioning as well. I was actually very high functioning when I was in school. I was pregnant, I was having my babies, I was studying, I finished, with the first even, went for my master's, did that, I was working, I was doing everything together. So I could be as high functioning like that, but at the same time, when the crisis starts, that is everything just knocks off. So yeah. I'm practically not able to do anything. So I think it's really hard. Maybe I should make an excuse for people. Maybe it's really hard to marry the high functioning person to the person who suddenly then is not able to do anything. So yeah, so I get that, that high, like, what, it's not true. You can't be feeling like it can't be as bad. Come on, just take meds and be fine. Yeah. But it's not really a case of taking meds and be fine for me. It's not, it's something that is there. I really want to explain it, but I don't know how to explain how this pain presents. Then when I pass out as well, I don't know if that passing out is something that is general to everyone, but when it started, now it's actually becoming something that happens. My husband had to start looking at me, are you okay? And then the other day, my boy was like, are you about to pass out? I'm like, come on, no, you guys, when I passed out, one of the doctors was asking me, explaining to me, what were you feeling before you passed out? I'm like, what kind of question is that? Like, I don't know. I feel dizzy, everything starts turning, and then that is it. I just go down. I don't want to go down. It's just something that happens. So it's I wish people know that. I wish the doctors can just hear us out and then make our care person-centered rather than generalizing, what everyone is going through, because it's not all sickle cell trait carriers that are symptomatic. There are some of us that are not. So it's better to make the care very person-centered rather than just thinking that, well, this is what the research says and that is what we're running with. No, it's doing a lot of service to people like us, So I wish people knew.
So obviously you guys have got a lot of experience, and is there anything that you have found, because I want to kind of end on a rather hopeful note, is there anything that you have discovered? I know, Neka, you mentioned quite a few things. Is there anything that you would say helped to elevate the symptoms that you can say to other carriers, okay, try this might work, that kind of thing?
Yeah, for me, I'll say number one, you need to learn to listen to your body, because one of the things that I've come into terms with is accepting myself this way. So there's there's this psychological part of it that we always look away from. You touched a bit on it, Lulu, when you were talking about there was a time that you just felt like this is too much for you to bear. I was at that point in my life myself. So you have to learn to listen to your body. Now I'm so in touch with my body that when something is going on, I can quickly pick up on it. And I know, this is strange. This is not usual, So I know I mentioned medications, but I always want us to know that we need to understand that medications should not be like our go-to all the time. If it's helping you, then you need to figure out how to be able to allow your body some time off them as well. You see, it's a training. You need to practice it. You need to train your body, especially when it's opioids. I'm not a medical practitioner, but so I would really want for doctors to be able to talk about the medication part. But all I know from a user point of view, that they are very addictive, and the withdrawal symptoms can be as bad. So what I do is I'm training my body to use them to my advantage at the same time, not in the future and then be fighting against me. So I train my body to, I've realized what my pain threshold is. So the pain threshold is, you need to figure out what your pain threshold is how far your body can go. So when I realize that my body can go over this, so it's not like the instant that I start feeling the flares that I go for meds. The instant they start, I still try other things, warm bath and, having a few work, right, and stuff like that. In fact, there was a time, I'll tell you, we had a work and I couldn't come back home myself because my knees were so painful. My husband had to come home and take the car and, to bring me back home. I'm like, so what did we just do? So, so for me, I'll say those are just the few things that you need to start being in touch with your body and always try to understand. You can read up on pain threshold and manage your medication in such a way that it's not going to work against you later on. I'm talking about opioids. you know, because there are some other meds that works for the nerves, you know, for the nerves pain as well. So I have a few of them. I'm always reviewing my meds. I don't want to rely on them. So even if your doctor has forgotten that if you prescribe me something, I always go to them. I have these meds. Do you think I should still be taking them? Because they are super hard on me, you know, and they will be like, oh yeah, we can take that off now. So it's a case of you know, taking your life
control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I find like just following on from what Nika has said, medication, but like she said, the addiction, the withdrawal symptoms sometimes can even be worse than how you've been feeling before, and they make you feel 10 times worse. And you're not in control of your own mental facilities. You feel like this is not me, I'm a totally different person, to the point of even triggering such emotional breakdowns as well with being on such high medication. To be honest, a lot of times I find, because I don't take my medication as religiously as doctors say to do it, because of them being opioid based, the ones that I'm on oxycodone, which they say is supposed to be like morphine equivalent. That's very high. I take that, it's liquid, and it goes in really quick into my bloodstream. I try to minimize using that because I don't want the addiction. I struggled to get it, but when I did get it, I just thought, okay, I don't want to be on this for the rest of my life. This is not me. I cannot be dealing with this. And like Nika said, just going back in brief, to be an extremely high function, I had my business, I had work full time. I'd do my business after work full time, and then in the evenings, then work my business on the weekends, and studying as well, working and studying both full time. When I did that, I did all of that, not realizing the damage that I was doing to my body until I just couldn't anymore and my body crashed. And it's like, wow. So from that to now doing very little in my own mind from what I used to do, but it is a lot that I'm doing. Even though I don't see it as a lot, but I feel it's a lot for my body and for my mind. So now it's thinking about everything that you've just touched on, the home remedies, say like hot baths, heat pads, sleeping. If I feel like there's a slight headache, and after this discussion, I will sleep because I'm feeling like my body is hurting. My head, the pain is beginning in my head, and it's there, but it's stabbing. So a sleep will help, a nap helps, and I take my naps daily almost, because I need them. If I need to sleep, I'll sleep. Hydration, foods. I'm researching more and more on different foods. You know, protein, high proteins, low. What's the word? I've forgotten the carbs, the difference between the complex carbs and the sugars. So I'm looking at, you know, low lasting energy sources that will help me have boost of energy. Things for my back. If I have to use aids, I mean, a friend of mine was the one that gave me adult social care contacts. So I made that choice to contact them for help in the house, for bath aid. I need that because even it's just making those adjustments and coming to terms, like Nikki had said, coming to terms and being okay, this is me now. You know, I don't want to be like this forever, but how right now, this is the reality. How do I cope? What do I do to make life easier for myself? And just positive changes, food, smoothies, having superfoods, moringa, liquid chlorophyll, things that boost your blood as well, and changing it up every so often as well, just trying new things. So yeah, that's positive.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm very conscious of time now. Mwape, it'd be great for you to share the new medical IDs that you have with the group. So everyone, tell us more about that.
Thank you. So I created these. I had a dream, in brief, I had a dream where I was hospitalized, and my last surgery in 2019, prior to the surgery that I just recently had, caused me to have a bad crisis because no one listened in that ward. So I told my doctor, they did the pre-checks, everything, and I still had a crisis, literally not even 3 full hours after coming out of the hospital, and I knew I was going to have one. I could feel it coming. It knocked me for 3 weeks. I was out of work, even though I should have had maybe a week at max recovery period. So I felt that it was important to have medical recognition. So the band says symptomatic sickle cell trait. It says the group name and it says I'm an SCT warrior. This was the first trial and I've had feedback about the next lot. So these are available to purchase if anyone would like. I have quite a few. So if anyone would like one, just reach out, drop me a message or go to www.mwapamila.com, find my email form, and email me on the get in touch page, and I can get one sent over to you. And they're just to identify you as if you're at risk, you need that identification, especially if you're not like parents with children who, may not be with them. At least there's something there that identifies you at risk, and hopefully a medic on hand will know what to do in the instance of an adverse incident.
Excellent. And can you tell us any group updates, please?
Yes, definitely. So I don't know if everybody's noticed that we've got a new page, which will be more public. So at least public people, the general public will be able to search it and find, without being in the closed setting of the group, for those who are uncomfortable sharing as public as this recording will be, because we can have, if people want to remain anonymous, we can make sure that that's available for them. So there's a cover being created for that, and that's in progress. The first draft has been sent over to me. There is also a sickle cell trait or symptomatic journal being created as well, and that's for people to be able to create their own care plan and cater it to their needs. So I'll give a bit more of an update as that's progressed. And then if anybody would like to share their symptomatic story on a panel like this, please get in touch using the contact form again on my website, www.mwapamila.com. And you can drop me an email as well at sicklecelltraitinfo@mwapamila.com. And that's it from me. And I just want to say thank you so much for being an amazing co-host, Andrina, and Nike. Thank you.
Andrina. Yeah. Thank you.
You've done amazing.
Yeah, thank you for this time. Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've learned so much. I had quite a few other questions I was actually writing down, but we're going to save that for the next session. So we're stuck to time, so I'm very pleased. I just want to say thank you to the panel. Thank you to everybody that's in the Zoom and everybody that's listening on Facebook. We've learned a lot about pregnancy administration in relation to sickle cell trait, and we've also learned about certain things that we can do to elevate the situation. Yeah, and I think that's key. And also I think the key thing that I picked up on this was you've got to know your body and not try to be something that you're kind of not. You've got to know your body and deal with what you're facing, and you've got to be really, really pushing with the medical team because they don't get it. And if they don't get it, you need to make sure that they at least do the referrals and help you the best that I guess they can. So thank you, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Yes, please. Thank you, Andrina. Take care. Bye, Lulu.
Thank you. See you later.
It's a pleasure.
Wonderful seeing you. Thank you,
Bye,
Andrina.
Bye,
everyone. Thank you for joining.
Okay.